Thank you for coming on the SMT. This has been long in the making, I would say, to get you on the show. But so thanks for coming on.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks, man. Yeah, I think we spoke about it 3 years ago. And here we are. Here we are. You know what? Some things are just meant to happen when they're supposed to happen, bro. I really believe in that. So, our paths will cross when the time is right. And now the time is right, I guess.
Yeah, and here we are. Yeah, so fantastic to see you. And obviously, we've had to do it via Zoom, which is the way these days because of COVID. And and obviously, you've been in the creative industry. You're obviously not doing much at the moment, are you? So.
Well, on the flip side, actually, funny enough, as you know, because I work for Rivco Theatre Company as an associate director there, and sadly, we haven't been able to put on any theatre this year, but COVID has made us kind of diversify. So we've made a lot of what we were planning to do this year. We've turned it digital. So actually, that was one of the reasons I was brought on initially to head up the digital arm of the company. So I've been really busy.
Yeah.
But in a brilliant way, but also in a kind of, as a theatre company, we've been forced to kind of diversify. Do you know what I mean? And we've managed to find our way. But so many people, so many friends, so many colleagues, so many associates haven't been fortunate within the arts, man. So, it's a really difficult time for many, for lots of reasons, but certainly the arts is struggling hugely.
It is. And when you were saying to me, we had to diversify, I thought you was going to retrain in some other kind of job, like a plumber or something, right?
That was my joke. When Rishi Sunak said artists had to retrain, I was like, I never trained in the first place. So actually, now I'm going to go train to be an actor, to piss him off even more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes when you hear things like that, it's quite. I mean, I'm not in the theatre or anything like that, but I know a lot of people in the arts. I know a lot of Bangladesh musicians and singers, and when someone says something like that, it kind of shows me a mentality of a government that they kind of see it as some kind of hobby and rather than a profession. You could just change your whole life and do this now because you're finding it hard at the moment.
Which is why that big campaign, art is work, and we are viable. It's okay for very kind of privileged, highly educated, kind of middle to high class people to be able to kind of pinpoint and go, you know what, you need to do something else. But sadly, the reason why we did this in the first place is to kind of express ourselves and do something out of the box in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, we would have just been all doctors and pharmacists and lawyers, and not that there's anything wrong with those people, but the world need artists. And actually, during the lockdown, we were the industry that people fell back on.
Exactly.
And were kind of looking towards people in the arts to kind of fill their time. Netflix had the highest subscription it ever had. People were watching theatre online. I directed a show last year called Mushy, Lyrically Speaking.
Yeah.
We had so many hits of that show worldwide because we filmed it properly, and it hit parts of the world that we wouldn't have got to, in the theatre. It was Japan. We were having watch parties with theatre goers in Toronto. So it's like I said, it's easy for people to just kind of go, you know what, maybe there isn't enough work for you. Like, you need to go and find another job. But during the lockdown, I'm sure even they were watching Netflix and looking at kind of reruns of national theatre productions.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, tough times, but for yourself, you're one of those characters where everyone thinks they know you because you've been around. Do you know what I mean? Right? You must meet people, and they kind of come up to you and say, "Hey, and you've never met them before in your life." And I even talk to my wife now. She goes, she always asks me, who are you interviewing today? I said, Ameet Chana from Bend It Like Beckham and on EastEnders. She goes, are you, right? And even her sort of eyes sort of lit up, and for everyone, it's a weird situation. Everyone kind of knows you, right? And but you've done so much in your career. But for you, where did it start? I've always wanted to know, how did you kind of get involved in this? You mentioned briefly then you've done no formal training as such.
Sat, you're taking me back. I think this year I actually crossed my 30-year mark in the industry.
Wow.
Because I think 1990 was the first film I shot. It was called Wild West, which was a Channel 4 film, full film in Southall. I'd done a few bits before that, but that was kind of like smaller things. But 1990 was the big kind of first gig. And yeah, I mean, to kind of cast my mind back, I think I always had the performer in me, and I think my parents and my family around me knew it. I was hugely inspired by Michael Jackson. A lot of people on your back wall there as well. Elvis Presley, Amitabh Bachchan. I used to come home from school and put the Off the Wall album and imitate the moves from Michael Jackson's, videos and know the lyrics to it all. And I was in school productions, and we used to live in Croydon then, which is, you know, a million miles away from any kind of Asian culture, really, at that time. Then we were 14, and my mum enrolled me in this Sunday kind of school thing called the London Academy of Acting. It was a Sunday workshop run by Puneet Sira and his father, Gurdial Sira, who are both kind of stalwarts of the sort of British South Asian kind of artist-led kind of community back then. This was late 80s. And I went to that for 3 months. It was at Brent Town Hall in Wembley. And I went there, I was 13, 14 years old. They had an agency, they took me on, and then it all sort of unraveled by itself, you know. I just think my mum particularly, she sort of saw something in me and really championed me and kind of took me to my auditions on the tubes and, you know, took me to my classes on Sundays. And but I never really got any formal training. I never went to what is seen as like, you know, the UK's kind of big drama schools like LAMDA or Alra and all those kind of stuff. But because by the time I was going to do that, I'd already had sort of nearly 8 or 10 years experience under my belt. Wow. You know, by the time I would have been the age to do that. So I was just enjoying the ride, man.
Yeah. I mean, when you went to these drama classes and then you said you got picked up by an agency, obviously they must have seen something in you, because sometimes when I talk to people, they say, I sang at this show, and then someone come up to me backstage and said, look, you've got a really good voice. And they kind of, for them, it's part of their life, and they kind of brush it aside. But for, you know, for people listening, that's kind of the dream almost. You know, you're doing some classes and someone's obviously seen something special in you. Do you think you know why there was something there, or are they looking for a particular style? Or?
Yeah, I think it was probably partly because of my age. I was very young. I was 13, 14. There weren't many people of our ethnicity at that time doing what I wanted to do. They had an agency, so they probably saw a hole in the kind of in their agency of not having anyone represented at that age. But also this agency that they ran called TIC, it was the UK's only South Asian talent agency. So people like Archie Punjabi was there, Ronnie Jutty, who was in the first kind of Asian family in EastEnders back in the 80s. The list goes. Veena Tulsiani, who played the daughter in Grange Hill back in the 80s. The list goes on and on. Anyone that was Asian that was doing anything mainstream at that time was from that agency.
Wow, yeah.
So I was very fortunate to be picked up by them at their young age as well. And they really championed me and they really pushed me. And they obviously saw something in me that you know, there was a lot of people that came through those doors, man. Every 3 months, they used to get a whole new batch of 50 new students. You know, so in amongst that, to be able to be signed at that age and then get work as well, there must have been something.
I mean, that's always the elixir, isn't it, of artists' work? You know, that's what they're always striving for, the next job. And so for 30 years, you know, I'm not saying you've been lucky, but you've been fantastically successful in doing that. I mean, that's a success in anyone's eyes for doing it for 30 years, you know.
And it is luck. You know, it's what you do with the luck that matters, Sat. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to pretend that, you know, I've been blessed and I was sent down as the kind of chosen one or anything like that. You know, I went for auditions like everybody else and I got the job. You know, it's what you do in the room at the time is the deciding factor, and it is luck, but it's what you do with that luck. And I think, you know, and I made sure I learned from it and I developed from it, and I never had, like I said, formal training. So each job I went on, I made sure I learned something new about the filmmaking process or the stage production process or how TV is made. I'd go up to people behind the camera and go, what do you do, mate? Do you know what I mean? When I should have been learning my lines. And they'd be like, I'm a clapper loader. I'm like, what's that? He goes, well, I clap the clapper and I load the film and the camera, you know. And every day I'd learn something new because I wanted to understand my craft.
Yeah. And
the way I learned my craft was to be on my feet and learn it rather than in a classroom, you know.
So, I mean, your family must have been super happy and supportive at that time. You know, your mum's been taking you on the tube to auditions and classes, and you know, that must have been a cool time for your family as well, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure my mum had huge battles with my dad at the time, you know, because, you know, I'm not going to lie, I was up until my GCSEs, I was privately educated, like private school educated and all that kind of stuff. And my dad was working hard, you know, in a shop 12 hours a day to pay for those fees. And here's his son prancing off to be a little actor. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure they had their kind of, you know, they're kind of coming together of heads and their arguments and stuff. But eventually when Dad started to come and watch me in the theatre or watch stuff I was on the telly, I think he started to really kind of go, yeah, maybe this was there. I have a fond story, actually. My mum's brother, He was a GP for many, many years, both NHS and private. You know, really quite well-to-do family and well-educated kids. And for years and years, he used to say to my mum, "What are you doing? This guy's got so much potential. He's very clever. He's astute. He gets great results. And, you know, you're taking him around the country to auditions or blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff." And then years later, many, many years later, I was at my cousin's wedding in Wales somewhere. There was like some, you know, it was a beautiful, I think it's got Caerphilly Castle or something like that. And we were in the grounds after the drinks reception. We'd all had a couple of glasses of champagne, and he came up to me. I'm talking about good 20 years later. He came up to me, he goes, "I'm really proud of you, Ameet." He goes, "I didn't think you could do this," but he goes, "Now people come up to me and they say, 'I saw your nephew on the TV,' or I will go out of my way to watch something and tell people that my nephew's in this, please go watch it." And, you know, it makes it all worthwhile. You know, even if it is 20 years later, it still remains with me. You know?
Yeah. I mean, your mum, just as much as you, persevered, right? And she's obviously got a love for the arts and acting.
Yeah. I think it was just love for me. I think she realized it's what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, my family grew up on Bollywood. They used to go to the cinema. They were always up on the new music. You know, we used to listen to Sunrise Radio on the way to school and back. And we were a heavy music family. We always had music on, whether it's in the car, whether it's in the shop, whether it's upstairs once they'd gone to, you know, once they'd closed the shop or anything like that. So I think there was an appreciation for it, which helped.
Yeah. So what was the kind of the first role? You said you'd done the film with Southall. What was kind of the first role that you had or part you had, and you thought, you know what, I think I'm making some headway here. I think I could do this, you know? That's
a really good question. I don't know. To be honest, it's all a bit of a blur. And I remember getting a call from my agent. I think I was just signed on. I was about 14 or 15. And he called me and he said, "I've got a day shoot for you in Swindon. And because you're underage, you'll have a chaperone and a tutor with you and blah, blah, blah. You know, your mum has to go to the civic centre and get this paper signed for legally being released from school and all this kind of stuff." And he was like, "Listen, and, you know, there's only X amount of money for the day." And I was like, "Don't worry about the money. Keep the money. Just tell me where I need to be," you know. And I went and I drove, and it was basically a educational video. At that time, the London Docklands were just being built. And the LDDC, which was the London Docklands Development Corporation, started to put together these educational videos for people living in the area that were probably being relocated hugely, you know, massively. And, you know, they were giving them options about what their kids should do when they leave school, you know, GCSEs or get apprentice jobs or whatever. And I was a kid in these educational videos of parents who basically were making 3 different decisions. And that was my first job. And I thought, okay, well, if that's it, this is pretty simple. I just pick up the phone. My agent tells me where to go and it's a job. And then I didn't get a call for like 6 months. Do you know what I mean? It's like, then you kind of go, okay. And I'm still young, right? I'm still at school. And then when I had already turned 16 because my birthday's in September. And I was in my final year and I got cast in this film for a film called Wild West. And that was a game changer for me because it was a 6-week shoot, all on location pretty much. I was being picked up in like, you know, stretch Mercedes, just being taken down the road from Harrow to Southall, you know, and a tutor would come in another car and I'd get my own trailer. And then sometimes I'd go to school because I wasn't supposed to be filming. And then the school office would get a call saying, "Oh, we've got a weather cover scene. It's raining now. So we're going to shoot an indoor scene that Ameet's in. So we've got to send a car." And obviously the school were aware. So then all of a sudden, about 12:30, you know, this gold Mercedes would come to school and pick me up and stuff like that. And so I thought that was it. I thought I'd arrived. I was like, this is it. And then again, you know, it's 6 or 8 weeks later, you finish filming and you're back to school and no one knows anything different, you know. And that film took 2 years to come out, sadly, you know. But cut to 10, 15 years later, the same thing happened with Bendy Like Beckham. I had 6 to 8 weeks on the set of my life. I had the best time on that film, and it's still one of the most memorable things I've ever made, and the most successful, actually, you know, let's not lie. And straight after filming it, I was doing a call center job that was run by actors for actors that you could kind of get an hourly rate. And because they knew that you had to go for auditions, they let you come and go. And I remember when Bendit came out, I don't think I've ever told anyone this story. The night Bendit had the premiere in Leicester Square, I was at work in Victoria at this company called Profcom, making phone calls to make appointments for companies. I had a hotel room booked in Covent Garden. My now missus met me there. We got dressed up. The car picked us up from that hotel. I went to the premiere, went to the after party, got driven back home, which was amazing. And the next morning I was on a tube to Victoria to go make phone calls again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what happens is you realize and go, everything else that comes with this, said many years ago, is that fame is just a byproduct of what we do. It's the fulfillment of the soul of creating work is what we do this for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if ever something brings you back down to earth, it's in a call center, right? And especially with a film like that, with a premiere, and there was a buzz around the film when it was getting released, and obviously it was super successful. And I mean, that what you've explained there for anyone listening and watching, that is the life of an actor, right? And let's not beat around the bush, right? We're not going to bullshit anyone saying, this is what you do. It's all, stars and premieres, and that is a pure life of an actor, right? And so you've become hardened to that, obviously. After all these years, you kind of know how the system works, right? And
yeah, of course. And then you do get the turning point, and and it's not always like that all your life, but certainly the first X amount of years as a career of an actor, you have to put the graft in. But at the same time, you got to find a way to keep feeding yourself and stay alive.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what did your friends at school think? Ameet's getting picked up in a limo, right? And
they didn't really know. There was only a handful of people. I mean, I don't know. Rishi Rich and I went to school together, and Mentor was in the year below me. And so we had a small pool of people, a couple of brothers, Mitesh and Upash, who were really good friends of ours. They're still really good friends. There was only a handful of people that knew. I think everybody else in school thought I was ill. I definitely, when I look back now, I still think that a lot of people in my school thought I was ill, and I had to keep taking time off from school and then leaving halfway through the day and stuff.
But they give me like, "Are you all right, Ameet? How you doing?"
Yeah, when I turn up, like, "Where you been, man? Is everything all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine, it's fine." Yeah. I just didn't want to be the guy that was like, "Oh, look at him," So I kind of kept it quiet.
Yeah. So you kind of had that head on your shoulders, to keep level-headed about things, and not. Because I was thinking, when all this was happening, I was thinking how I would deal with something like that. More than likely, I would have got a big head, I think, knowing myself. And I probably would have milked that, thinking I'm getting picked up in a limo, feet on the desk at school. But so that's upbringing as well, isn't it? With your family, to keep.
Yeah, I think it's grounding, right? It's just being reminded all the time that you are just a kid from Epsom who moved to Croydon and then lived in Harrow, ultimately. And your parents are still going to the shop at 10 o'clock in the morning after dropping you to school and hoping that they make the right amount of takings for that evening to be able to kind of, put food on the table, So that seeing them work hard was my realization of like, it doesn't matter what you've got and how much you've got. It can end at any time. So you have to keep going, and that's part of the reason, I guess.
Yeah. So after your film, Wild West, what was kind of the next role that you had? After that, was it as a smaller jobs as you're going along?
It was a lot of smaller jobs. I did the second season of Teenage Health Freak, which was like a modern day Adrian Mole, which was all shot at Uxbridge College, not too far away. I did that, and then I did a bunch of kind of guest appearances on kind of BBC and ITV shows. But I guess my big thing was that I met a couple of people on the set of Wild West, one namely Parv Bansal, who sadly is no longer with us, who was one of my closest friends and inspirations, I guess. He's a playwright who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. He was on that film playing one of the bad guys, and another guy called Niran Persaud, who was his brother-in-law. They had a theatre company called Hack, and one of the guys they worked with called Hardyar Rai who became a producer at Waterman's Art Centre. And he was using the venue and the access to, I guess, applying for funding from the Arts Council and stuff to put on British Asian comedy nights. I started then going to these comedy nights and and I was introduced to a community of British South Asian creatives. I didn't even know they existed, these people, people like Nina Wadia, Pravesh Kumar, who now heads up Rifco, where I work, Sanjeev Bhaskar, Nitin Soni, the list goes on, man. And they were all doing these comedy nights under this title called One Nation Under a Groove in It. And I would go to these comedy nights, and then slowly but surely Parv had some plays that he was writing under the same kind of commissioning of Hardyar Rai that I was then cast in. And then I did sort of 10 years of solid theatre, part of it touring theatre with big sort of mainstream companies like the National Theatre and the Royal Court and various bodies like Payne's Plough, which is a new writing theatre company, as well as all the Waterman's work I was doing. And then I got introduced to the bigger world of kind of mainstream theatre, film and TV, I guess. And that's where it all changed. So then things I started to understand that this is a business now. This is my career. I have to get paid to do stuff. I can't just go, it's all right, keep the money, just tell me where to go anymore. And it was a wake-up call around about probably, I don't know, maybe 22, 23. I kind of went, okay, I have to take this seriously now.
Yeah. I mean, when you mentioned the people in the theatre company in Hack and you reeled off them names, I was kind of getting excited. I was thinking, wow, what a creative hub that would have been, you know, people in there. It must have been actually electric. I mean, even you talking about, I'm literally, you know, I'm goosebumps, mate, because that must have been an amazing experience, because you can bounce ideas off them people and they would be on your level. They would know what you're trying to go and they'll bounce something back to you. It's just creativity sparking around.
This is what it is, that, you know, the thing is, when you're around people who have got similar experiences culturally, educationally, physically, musically, filmically, all of that stuff, you don't start from here. You start here. You're already on a level playing field. Whereas anybody else outside that, you'd have to start by explaining all of that, and then finally people go, okay, what would you like to make? Do you see what I mean? Whereas with people on your side, or people with the same experience of you, you're already on the level playing field. You go, I want to write a play about gangs in Hounslow. All right, mate, I knew about them. I grew up around them. Let's do it. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. It's not like, oh, gangs in Hounslow, you know, did they really exist? Aren't there gangs everywhere? Isn't that the same as gangs in anywhere? And it's like, yes, it is. What mainstream white theatre makers didn't understand is that stuff that people like Parv was writing was parallel to other communities. But the difference is it was as important to that community and our community. I always say the destination might be the same, but the journey is different. And that's what makes that personal to our community or somebody else's community. It's the journey that makes it different. And you didn't have to explain that. Yeah,
absolutely. That must have been an amazing time. And, you know, even now when you're talking about it now, I could see in your eyes, you know, you kind of lit up and you remembered in times and your friend part as well, you know. So for you, around 21, 22, you said, you know, I'm going to start taking this serious now, you know. In the sense you're doing theatre and film, I know there's an old adage in there about what's real acting. It's the theatre, right? Treading the boards. And if I was an actor, I'll be in the theatre, Ameet, right? And but did you find that sort of transition between the two hard, or because I know there's some Hollywood actors that, you know, they do their Hollywood blockbuster films, but they always want to tread the boards, right? They want to do theatre because that's that kudos thing, right, of being a theatre actor as well.
It's kudos, but it's also when I interview people on my radio show, I always say to them, you know, I know as an artist what I do to feed my stomach, and I know what as I do as an artist to feed my soul. Do you know what I mean? And theatre feeds your soul. It's not the best paid job in our world, but what you get as a fulfillment of spending 4 weeks in a room from the same page, right? Everyone's on the same page on day one of rehearsals with theatre. You know, no one's done any more homework or any less homework than anybody else. You all read through the script the first time together in a room. And then you get, on average, 4 weeks to create something together. And then you put it in front of an audience. And the audience will tell you there and then whether they like it, don't like it, whether something's funny or not funny. If something's funny and you didn't know it was funny, how do you change that the next day to keep it funny? All of those things are magical about the theatre, you know, and you can't get that buzz anywhere else.
No, and I think for an artist like yourself, it's that immediate reaction, right? Because you could film a scene and in your mind thinking, you know what, I smashed that. I was brilliant, you know, and a director might go, yeah, cut, great, you know, but that's kind of it, right? And you could see it on the screen. You don't almost get a sense of
well, then you have to wait a year at least to see it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, by the time it comes out, you're like, I'm done with that. I've done something else since then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. With the theatre, though, you know, it's that atmosphere. Even when there's a quiet scene on theatre, right? You can feel it, right? Everyone's kind of listening to every word. And
even as an actor, you're on your toes, right? Because you don't know how the other actor that you're listening or responding to is going to give you something, you know. Although everything's pretty much the same in terms of blocking, but sometimes an actor might be feeling slightly different that day. And the way they give you a line is very different from the way they give it to you yesterday, you know. And
Mm.
so you're listening all the time. You know, the magical thing, you know, something I learned at that Sunday school that I'll never forget is that as tractors, so a tractor does the same thing over and over again. It goes back, it picks up, it goes back again. And an actor, people think that that's what actors do on stage. They do the same thing every night. But actually what we're doing is reacting in the moment. You know, good actors react in the moment. And you might go, oh, that sounded a bit different from last night. It's like playing tennis. Somebody might give you a backhand, and then the next time they give you a backhand, you think it's going to be the same one, but they'll put a little bit more undercut on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's like, oh, how do you react to it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what acting's about on stage.
Yeah. That's so fascinating to me, you know, and it's about, you know, I don't know what actor I heard said, you know, they was just saying, look, define acting. He goes, well, you know, I learn my lines, I say my lines, then the other actor says his lines, and I react to them lines, right? And he goes, that's kind of it. And I think the interviewer wanted more deeper, but he goes, that's kind of it, because that's, and then we put our emotions into, you know, it's our life experiences also go in there as well, you know. It is magical when you get some actors together on the top of their game, and that's why when you've got a great supporting actor with you as well, and you bouncing off each other, and I think that's why it elevates both people's performances to another level, you know. Have you worked with some people that you just needed to up your game and it's made you better?
Oh, all the time. You know, I, as a young untrained actor, when I first started doing theatre, I used to turn up, do my job and go home again. And then suddenly it's like one day you might be on a different show and an actor will do things slightly different every night. And you're like, wow, this guy is catching me out here. You know,
backspin.
Yeah, my response didn't make sense because I just did it the same computerized way, you know. And then, it changes the game. I've had that with actors and I've had that with directors. You know, there's certain directors in my career that have really, really upped my game in terms of challenging me and not allowing me to just kind of briskly walk through rehearsal and then walk through the show every night. You know, and I don't deny it. As a young actor, I used to do that loads.
Yeah. Do you prefer that kind of director where he says, I mean, look, these are the lines, but you know, I want you to kind of go with the flow yourself as well, kind of let you improvise slightly, or
there's never any room for improvise, but I think it's more about being honest with the emotion. It's not what you think it is, it's what you're feeling. Do you see what I mean? It's you could sit at home and write down what you think the line means, but until you're in the moment, you're never going to really know, because if it's a response to somebody else saying something, you don't really know what that line means until you respond. So actually instinct is the biggest thing. I'm a big believer, even as a director now, I'm a big believer of an actor's first instinct. It excites me so much. I always try not to give actors the script before they get there. I go, it's all right, unless obviously people have got dyslexia or something like that, or they need to do it in order for confidence or whatever. But I try not to give actors any kind of script or text before they turn up, because I want to hear what their first instinct is when they read it. And it's nearly always the best one. Because when actors start overthinking stuff, they heavy, you know, they make it heavy and they overweigh it and they over emote it, you know, and actually sometimes the best acting is when an actor just stands there and says their line, you know. Yeah. Because the line is doing all the talking, right? Yeah. That's why the writer wrote the line.
Yeah, you know what? That reminds me of I'm a big film fan, so that's why I've got all these sort of anecdotes about film. Liam Neeson was making Schindler's List, and Steven Spielberg was saying to him, you know, when you get the cigarette, sort of blow the smoke out slowly, so you've got these, and he goes, then just, you know, taking a breath slowly. And they cut, and then Liam Neeson goes to one of his co-stars. He goes, I can't fucking do this with this guy, man. He's telling me to do everything. He goes, he goes, just trust him, in his process. He kind of knows what he's doing, right? And he did, obviously, right? And it showed in his performance. And he goes, when I look back at it, he goes, I realised what Steven Spielberg was doing. He was overacting it, Liam Neeson. He was trying to do that gravitas, but you're right. He didn't need to, right? Because it's in the lines already, you know. It just reminded me of that story, and I find it fascinating. I love the sort of work process of an actor and a director, and that team. It's a crew. It's a crew of people.
It is a crew. It's all a team. You know, even sorry, just rewinding a little bit. I mean, you made a great reference to Liam Neeson there, but also if you watch Amitabh Bachchan, he does nothing. It seems like he does nothing. If you watch Mohabbat there with him and Shah Rukh, toe to toe, Amitabh Bachchan is doing nothing, and Shah Rukh is doing all the acting. And I'm not taking it away from him. Shah Rukh is amazing. I love watching him, and even he's like an Al Pacino. Al Pacino does everything really big, and that's just his style. And Shah Rukh does it that way. A different school of thought is the Amitabh Bachchan way, where actually you keep still and you deliver your line. And the stillness is what gets through to someone, I think, emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's magic, isn't it? Some of these moments, on magic moments on screen. And I mean, some people would see it and that he's not doing nothing. He's just standing there. But, you know, if you know what he's doing, and obviously then Shah Rukh's bouncing off me, that we know, you know, it works together as a... but so magic experiences for you. So for you, you're on theatre, you're doing film. Kind of the big roles that people talk about you is obviously Bend It Like Beckham, and if I don't ask you some questions about it, people are going to kill me on my show, because I try not to ask, you know, the questions that everyone usually asks, but I'm going to do it anyway. And, do
it. It's fine.
But for yourself, you know, how did you kind of get involved? Did you know Gurinder from theatre or?
No, I knew Gurinder just in social gatherings. I you know, I always tell this story when he talks about Bend It. I remember we went to an Asha Bhosle concert a couple of years before Bend It was shot, and we went to the reception afterwards at Wembley Arena, and she was talking to me. She was saying, "Oh, I've got this film about football, about a young Punjabi girl from Southall who wants to play football." And I looked at her and I went, "That," and she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "That's exactly the same reaction I'm getting from everyone. Is I can't get anyone to fund it." And I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "You know, not only is it about a girl playing football, but it's about a Sikh Punjabi girl playing football from Southall Hounslow. You know, so it's like everything against it." And then years later, you know, I got the call to come meet her for an audition, and I went into the offices in town. I still remember it really clearly. I went in and I read for Tony, and she said to me, "Look, you know, you need to know that this character is a character who's a gay character, but he's just his best friend, and he's there by her side, and all that kind of stuff. So if you were to be offered this, I'd really like you to kind of, you know, seriously think about it, because it is different from the norm, particularly within the Asian community." And then I think I had a recall. I went back to meet her to read some more scenes. And it's funny because Tony is like the complete opposite of me in terms of, you know, I've got a massive Kanda tattoo and I grew up in Harrow being a little rude boy, whereas Tony is like this really nice guy from Hounslow who basically looks out for his best friend. And Gurinder said to me, she goes, "You know, you're good. It's younger than you, so we're going to have to kind of give you a clean shave, and we'll have to make sure that your tattoo's not visible and all that kind of stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever it takes, you know." And then she said to me, "How do you feel about Tony's, you know, being, homosexual?" And I said, "To be honest, it's the reason why I want to do it, Gurinder." And I said, the great thing about the way that Tony's been portrayed in this script is that he's not bells and whistles camp, you know, walking around in high heels with a feather boa. He's just a normal kid who happens to be, you know, that way sexually orientated. And even the way that it is dealt with in the script, it is dealt with so beautifully and so subtly and with such kind of, I'm trying to think of the word, you know, just gently, you know, it's dealt with gently, you know, apart from Jess's reaction, you know, but which is brilliant, and that's what changes it.
I think from a viewer's point of view, when I saw that scene, because it's a super funny scene for a start, obviously, you know, with the line, right? And let's be honest, David Beckham's a good-looking guy, right? And I think most blokes probably say, yeah, he's a good-looking.
There is a bit of a romance situation, yeah.
But you're right; it's an Asian guy who's not camp, you know. He hasn't got a feather boa, like you said, and he's just gay, right? And I think it disarmed people that were watching because they laughed, but if you really think about it, that's quite a big statement to say in a film, you know, there's Asian gay men, you know, and,
huge.
And the thing is, people love the character, right? So you couldn't then flip and say, "Well, don't like him because he's gay." You can't,
exactly,
because you've already kind of fallen in love with him anyway. He's a nice guy. He's a little brother.
Yeah, and he bails his best mate out all the time, even to the point where he's willing to marry her in order for her to go to America. You know,
I think it's genius. That little scene was genius. And,
there's a little anecdote about that scene actually, because Paminda and I were both on set that day, and we were shooting another scene, and we'd finished early. And Gorinda came up to us and she said, look, we finished early. We're in the same park as that scene. So rather than come back and do it another time, how do you guys feel about shooting it now? And I was like, wow, that's a big scene. You can't just throw it on us. And she went, all right, look, we're going to set it up on the back of the when it's a safe time when we come back to shoot it. Why don't you and Paminda go in the trailer and just go over it and stuff? So me and Mind spent about half an hour, 40 minutes just going through the scene. And actually what we ended up doing was not doing the scene. We just started bantering and having a bit of a ball. Luckily, Paminda and I have been friends for many, many years, but before that as well. So we knew each other. We got each other. And then we just said, you know what? Can I swear? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
And it was just like, fuck it. Let's just shoot it. Let's just shoot the scene. And if it's not good, we'll ask to shoot it again on the day that we're supposed to shoot it. We're like, all right, cool. So we went out, we spoke to Gorinda. She goes, are you sure? We're like, yeah, we think we're up for it. So what we did was and Gorinda was great at this as well. She set up the two cameras. She did the sort of wide of the two shot of the two of us, and then she set up the two cameras and she went, look, I'm just going to roll. You guys go. And in those days, it was still film, right? It wasn't digital. So that was expensive to say to an actor. You just go, don't worry, we'll keep rolling. And we did. And what we did was we managed to find a take that both Paminda and I enjoyed. Then Gorinda came in and gave us some notes. And then we did a take that Gorinda enjoyed. And then there was a kind of right on the script, on the nose, kind of Jess and Tony's kind of performance of it. And I think in amongst all three of those takes, we ended up getting a really beautiful friendship blossom in that scene, being really honest with each other. And that was, and it was off the cuff. We weren't even supposed to shoot it that day.
Yeah. It is a magical scene. And I mean, for you, that film itself was, when you was making it, you said you had a great time making it. And, but did you feel this was something special, this film, when it was coming out? Because I mean, for using the title "Bend It Like Beckham" at that time when Beckham was at his peak superpowers, that was genius in itself. And did you think this film is gonna blow up here? Was it?
Know what, we knew that we had something special, but we didn't know how special. I think Gorinda did. I think Gorinda was the only one throughout the whole process that she knew that she had something that was going to change the kind of landscape of British cinema in terms of representation. She did it before with Bargee on the Beach, and it wasn't, the biggest box office hit, but it's still a seminal film for reference of British Asian experience. But this time around, I think, look, everything, the stars were aligned, man. You had a title, you had women's football in the US exploding at that time. Beckham went from being someone being burnt as an effigy to being a hero of scoring that goal that put them through to the, whatever it was, the semis. I can't even remember now. That one goal that put them through. And then what was really amazing is the film was so brilliantly portrayed that actually it wasn't really about a Punjabi girl from Southall who wanted to play football. It was about every person who wanted to achieve something in their life that had something blocking them. Yeah. And that's what the parallel of that film was. And that's why that film works so well, because yes, on the surface, it was about a girl from West London that wanted to play football who happened to be Punjabi, but it was about every kid and every adult who remembered being a kid wanting to do something and having something get in the way of that, So yeah, and I think that's what its universal success was.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, as a bloke watching it, you forget really it's a girl who wants to play football, because you do forget, right? And it's about her challenges, and I felt her family challenges with her dad. Reminds me of my dad. He's walking around, he's got a little glussie in his hand, and he's going, no, and he gone, no, you ain't doing this, and just
get a kill.
Yeah, or, what is this? And yeah, I mean, amazing film. I mean, you must be super proud of that. I mean, it's a cult classic. It's there forever.
Very proud, very proud.
My daughters will be watching it when they get a bit older. They'll love it because it's still a great film. Whenever it's on, we all watch it. And
well, my daughter's 9 now, and she watched it when she was 3, and she loved it. And we left her in a room upstairs by herself. And after my first scene with the onions and the toilet roll, she was really enjoying it. I stayed with her until then, just to kind of get her used to seeing me. And I went downstairs, and about 5 minutes later, she was crying. And I said to my wife, I said, you go up. I don't want to go up, just in case you asked me something about the film. And she went, Daddy came on the screen with the toilet roll and then he hasn't come back since then. And that's why she was crying, because I hadn't come back again.
Yes.
But she was brilliant. And even at 3 years old, and this is the honest truth, she's 9 now. We asked her afterwards, did you enjoy the film? She said yes. And I said, what did you think it was about? She said it was about a girl wanting to play football, but she wasn't allowed to. And I said, why wasn't she allowed to? And she goes, because she's Indian. And I said, so what's the moral of the story? And she said, go to America. You could do whatever you want there.
Yeah. Clever girl.
She was 3, man, and she smashed it. That was the moral of the story for her. That if you go to America, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah. Back then you could.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe not. Maybe not so much now. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great film. It's a feel-good movie, right? And you should be super proud of it, definitely, without a doubt, you know. And so for you, you know, that's kind of that was a peak moment for you, and I think for everyone involved, you know, sometimes it's like, how are you going to pull out the second album? You know, after that, you know, it's
true.
You know, it's the artist mentality, isn't it? You know, that insecurity of, God, man, am I going to do anything that's so big, you know? And because it wasn't just Asian audiences that fell for it, you know, everyone did, you know, it was nationally, you know, everyone spoke about it. So for you, how did you feel after the fact? You know, it's a bit like going on stage and you just completely killed it on stage, Ameet, right? But then you've got to go home, right? And it's that downer, the adrenaline goes down slowly. Is it a bit of a downer afterwards for you?
Very much. I told you, the night after the premiere, I was back in Victoria making phone calls, man, to make appointments for companies, you know. And then the film came out and it had its success, and we rid off the back of that. And then, like everything else in the world of entertainment, you know, after the 6, 8, 10 weeks, 3 months success that it had until it came out on DVD, it was gone again, right? Because something else comes out and something else is successful. And then when the DVD comes out, then it all starts again at that time. Obviously, that doesn't happen so much now. But, you know, so it's like troughs, peaks and troughs.
Yeah. And
then I guess the saving grace for me on that film, off the back of that film, was almost, I think there might have been a slight crossover, but before it came out so in between shooting it and the film releasing, I was going back and forth for the casting of this new family at Eastenders. And that was a 1.5-year process, you know, going back and forth every couple of months, every 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And as we went along, people were eliminated from the process and new people would come along and they'd film the workshops and auditions that they were doing. And so there was a little glimmer at the end of the tunnel that if I get this, then my reign will continue, you know. You know, so I had that glimmer, and unfortunately, and I always, you know, like to say this because I am proud of it, but I'm the only person that went to the very first audition workshop all the way through them that ended up in the family. So all the other members they sort of joined the process somewhere along the line. And you know, I had full focus, man. I was like, I've got to make this happen. I've got to make this happen. You know, I'd already met my now wife then, and I had to find a way to be able to, you know, get married and get a house and get some security. And I was like hard focused on making sure that hopefully this goes my way. And fortunately it did.
It did. And, you know, a job in the soaps, it's probably the closest you're going to get to the 9-to-5 job, you know, for an actor, right?
Which is the thing I ended up hating.
It's steady work. It's steady. It almost sounds like it was an X factor for getting this role, you know. X factor.
It was a bit like
stages,
that. It was
you know.
a bit like that.
What were they kind of looking for? They wanted a certain look.
Who knows, mate? I don't know. I mean, it was every time we went back, there was just different people in the room. A couple of us would be the same, and then they would film us workshopping the scenes and stuff, and then a lot of what we did in those workshops that were filmed were our year one story. So we had the big Punjabi wedding on the square that they'd never had before. We celebrated Diwali on the square that they'd never had before. They had these kind of big family, Asian family of brothers kind of being nice to each other, but falling out here and there. A lot of the backstories of the brothers, like Raji, who played my older brother, having a gambling issue or whatever, that was something he brought to the workshops, and Ray playing a DJ was something that he brought to the workshops, you know. So a lot of our characters were founded in those workshops. But I think they wanted to put together a family that kind of partly looked like they could be family, but also a little bit. What ended up happening, actually, Sat, if you ask me the honest truth, and I can say this now, is all of us had all been in something hugely successful the year or so before. So myself and Pooja were both in Men Look Like Beckham. Ray and Nabil had just been in the Ali G movie, right? Raji had just come out of The Bill, which was obviously a police TV series then. And Dilip Dahil was in Bombay Dreams, who's a massive Bollywood star. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, as well as the ability, I think they went for, oh, these guys have got a little bit of the backing as well at the moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said.
And they're all brown. So let's get them in, mate. You know, let's sign them up.
Yeah, and they're all brown. They all look all right. They look like they could be an Indian family.
They all look the same, don't they? Usually, so let's put them together. And but you know, look, it's an iconic series, obviously, EastEnders, right? Not taking that away. But at what point for you did it start becoming, you know, mundane and the sort of the acting part? You know, I've heard, you know, the hours are quite long.
Yeah.
When you're doing scenes and you're kind of banging out the scenes, ain't you? Just next scene, next, and obviously you're working weeks in advance to when they actually come out. Was there a point that you remember where you thought, you know, it's a bit too much like a normal job for me?
Yeah, I do. I remember it really clearly. It was the middle of year 2, and there was this whole kind of controversy about Dilip, who played our dad's kind of work permit, of whether he was actually allowed to be working in the UK, or at least on the BBC set and stuff like that. So then he was made to stop coming to work while they looked into it. And I don't know how much I can say, but I mean, I won't say more than what I've said before. And that is, what happened is, at that time when Dilip was stopped from coming to work for whatever reason, there were a couple of other people, main casts, who were off as well, either for holidays or from pregnancies or whatever it was. And actually, overnight, what they had to do was rewrite about a month or two's scripts of our family.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of made up this story of Ronnie, who was Ray's character, being stabbed and then needing a kidney donor. And then Nabil, who played our mate Tariq, ended up being the only one that matched. And then we found out our dad had an affair with his mum, which is why his kidney matched. And then I think, as well as us, I think even the viewers got bored, man. There was one episode, I think that was 28 minutes of just the 4 of us in a hospital room because no one else was around. And that was the first time, I believe, that they'd shot a whole episode in one day. Like, literally, we shot a whole episode in one day because it was in one location.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember sitting there going, fuck me, this is really one day, man. You know, and also, the storyline prior to that wasn't as exciting as the first year had been. So, you know, it was a difficult time. But also, the other thing is, as an actor, you kind of go, you know, should I keep my mouth shut and just keep getting the check, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, unfortunately or fortunately, it all sort of fizzled out by itself anyway. By the end of the year 2 contract, we'd had the storyline of us being written out and stuff like that. So it kind of, and for me, it came at the perfectly natural time.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, did you, I mean, obviously hindsight's fantastic, but at the time, did you think, all right, you know what, it's kind of the right thing to happen, actually, because there's things I want to do. There's all that experience that you've had of being behind the camera and looking around, see what people are doing. You must have been building up these kind of, you know, mental skills in your head, thinking, you know what, if I had a chance to film, I might do it this way rather than that way.
Yeah.
So you kind of had a goal or a dream to start directing or writing?
Not really, no. It's funny enough, Sat, it's really weird, you know, and we'll get to that bit in a sec, but I always, up until about 2009, 2010, thought that I would only ever be an actor in this industry. I thought I had no aspirations to do anything else. I tried to write a little bit. I found it really, really solitary. You know, as a young actor from the age of 14, 15, being surrounded by people all the time and almost being pampered, to be honest, I found it so difficult to be creative on my own. I tried so many times to write. And then after EastEnders finished in 2005, 2006, I got married and we spent, you know, a couple of years kind of enjoying married life. And then in 2009, I went to film school in LA. It was something I wanted to do for a while. And that summer was really quiet. I knew my agent phoned up and said something's not right. I think it was post the recession of 2008, wasn't it? So recession of 2008 and 2009, the film industry and the team was really, really struggling. And I spoke to my agent at the beginning of beginning 3 months of 2009 and I said, look, what does it look like? And she said, look, it doesn't look like there's much happening. I can't imagine. And if you're not already in something by February, it's probably going to be November, October, November, that sort of later season, that things start to pick up again if you're not in something for the summer. So I just filled in the form for film school in America, in New York Film Academy in LA at Universal Studios. And within weeks I was out there and I was doing the course. And when I came back from that, I thought, you know what, I think this is it. I think this is what all these years has been about, of gaining this knowledge and this experience and understanding the craft. And then I set up a small production company and I started shooting music videos for Punjabi artists like Jussie Sidhu and various other people. And then Santu, and then I did a song for Honey Singh's film Zorawa, and all of that was going well. And then I'm jumping ahead a little bit now, so slow me down if you need me to. But
no, it's cool, mate.
When I started working at Rifco as an associate director, again, I had that realization. I went, now I know what the past 25, 26 years have been all about. Because when I directed my first show last year, which was a rap musical about a kid with a stammer called Mushy, Lyrically Speaking, at the end of that process, I went, now I know why I've spent the last 25 years or so doing what I do. And now I am the happiest I've been for a very long time, creatively, for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you use the ever-playing footballer, and you didn't want to go into management because you thought, I don't need it.
I want to keep playing.
Yeah, but then when you stop playing, you think, I missed the game, man, and I want to be involved. I want to be involved more. I want to make the decisions, and I've got ideas, right? Because having all them years of experience, you're probably accumulating so many ideas subconsciously. You may not even know it, So that trip to LA is probably super important to you. Was there something out there that you learned? Was there a different acting style? I know there's different acting methods. But
I went there to do filmmaking. I didn't go there for the acting side of things.
So
I went there to study filmmaking. So I did digital and film. So we even shot on actual 16mm film in black and white. So half the course was film and half the course was digital. And that process really made me open my eyes, and I kind of went, I think, fuck, this is it.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So in a way, with the recession, there's not many jobs around. It's kind of made the decision for you, right? And it's funny how you look back on things and think, what, maybe there is a God, right, looking down and pushes you that way and that way. Sometimes at the time you probably think, I'm talking to people watching and listening now. They might be in difficult situations in their life, and but it could be for a perfectly a good reason or a better reason, something better ahead of you. But it's listening to stories like that from you that I think gives people a lot of confidence to carry on, man, and don't stop. That's what life's about, right? Peaks and troughs, like you said. And
this is it, and this is exactly what I'm enjoying now, is that I'm being part and parcel of creating work for other people like me. I'm creating work that I wish was around when I was a young 18, 20, 25-year-old actor. I'm creating work with Rifco that basically whose USP is giving voice to British South Asian artists. And I feel like this is my this is my calling, man. When I made Mushy, I was like, fuck, man, I wish this play was around when I was like Varun, who played Mushy's age. I'd have loved to play him, a rap musical from a boy from Dewsbury, Pakistani boy from Dewsbury, off a TV show called Education Yorkshire, who every time he gave us his inner thoughts, he did in rap, written by Rackstar, produced by Niraj Chak. Do you know what I mean? It's like a dream team. Yeah. I'd love to have been that guy,
Yeah. See, I mean, it is a dream team, but could you imagine trying to sell that to the establishment of the theatre world? It wouldn't work, would it? We kind of have to do it ourselves, don't we? Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. I'm talking about white people, basically. If you said, look, this is what we want to make, they're going to be thinking, rap, it's a Pakistani boy.
Well, it's not so much rap. It's like, Asians don't rap, do they? Surely they do Bhangra.
Yeah.
Or they're Bollywood, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And that's it's just the kind of close one. And that's exactly the reason. So Pravesh and I have, since the show, have been into those establishments and spoken to the heads of those buildings and gone, why are you not letting us through the door, man? Look at this, watch this play. That's why we filmed it, so we could take it to some of those artistic directors of some of those buildings and go, watch this. This is what the British South Asian community is now. It's not about immigration, and it's not about necessarily about racism or when our parents came to this country. Those stories exist and they've been told, good or bad. But our experience, mine and yours, is very different.
Yeah, it's very different because even musically, you know, I mean, I like Bollywood. I like Kylie Minogue as well, and
Yeah, I could
you know,
see.
yeah, and I like a bit of everything, right?
Me too.
You know, and I know you do. You're a creative guy, right? And so we're open. Our culture's way more than just samosa, Bollywood dancing, and curries, and you know, I mean, it's part of that. But we've got so much more to offer, right?
Of course.
You know, and I remember seeing Britain's Got Bhangra, right? And I took my wife, and that's one of the first theatre shows I've ever been to in my life because I wanted to see it because I thought I can relate to this. I love Bhangra, right? And I love Shin from DCS, right? And I just thought this is amazing. I love anything from Rifko, by the way. You know, I think they're fantastic, and you know, I've seen quite a few of their shows, right? And I'm a big fan of theirs, right? Because it's perfect for me because it's got the humour from the Asian sort of my background, but it's got that modern twist. Songs are always fantastic. Yeah, it's good. It's great evening out. I love it. I can't wait. Let's get
That's the whole idea, man.
Oh, no, it's fun, man. It's super fun, right? And for anyone watching and listening, you know, if you haven't been to the theatre and you're thinking Rifko is one you need to go to first, it will set you up, right? And but for you, you know, being a creative director for Rifko, that's kind of a dream as well, right? You know, you're now having an input into these kind of productions.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, yes and no, because I'd never thought about being a director in the theatre. Even after all those years of experience, it was Pravesh that went, mate, isn't it time that you started directing something for the stage? And I was like, never really thought about it, mate, to be honest. And he went, well, think about it because there's a job opening and you need to apply for it. And I applied for it like everybody else, you know, and I went for the meeting and the chat with the 3 members of staff there and all that. And, you know, it went my way. But yeah, now I realize, you know, hindsight's a beautiful thing. And I'm like, I should have been doing this ages ago.
Yeah. It's definitely something that, you know, it's definitely something you could do, obviously, right? And there's probably things and subjects that you want to talk about. I mean, I just got to go back quickly. When you came back from LA, you said you started making some music videos, right? And made some bhangra. I remember that. I remember when someone said, you know, Ameet's made a music video for I think Jesse Sidhu, and I was thinking, oh, he's made a music video, right? And and it's a fantastic music video. You would never have known that. You've never made one before, right? And so I could see the stepping stones for what you was doing. And is film kind of on your horizon as well at some point?
Yeah, I mean, that was the reason why I went to film school and stuff like that, you know, and I hadn't really thought about directing for the theatre. That was when I came back from there, I was like, right, how do I make this work? I started writing, developing a script idea and stuff like that. And then I spoke to Jesse and I said, this is what we've done. He goes, yeah, bro. And also one of my big peeves was that as a big fan of Punjabi and Bhangra music at that time, I was getting really fed up with watching 3 girls dance around a BMW. Do you know what I mean? And I just kind of went, and the only thing I could do is do something about it. So I spoke to Jesse and I was like, listen, what do you say? And he goes, bro, you're my big bro. If that's what you want to do, let's do it. And he gave me my first opportunity. I then went on to shoot 3 or 4 music videos for him, a couple of other artists as well, and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, as I started to learn and develop that craft, technology moved on further. And then the kind of budgets I was expecting artists to spend, mobile phones were doing the same job now, right? So they're shooting in 4K, and I'm going, well, I have to pay $2,000 for the camera, you know, to rent it with everything that comes with it, of course. And they were like, yeah, but we could do the same thing on my iPhone, man, you know. And it's like, so I kind of went, okay, well, that's good. It was a great learning experience for me. I've put some great music videos on YouTube, and I set out, I sort of achieved in my mind what I set out to do, and that was to change the look of a UK British Bhangra video. And actually the last one I shot was with Govinda in Bombay for Jesse as well. So that was quite a nice video to bow out on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with 3 girls dancing in front of a car with some dry ice. I'm a big fan of them.
I mean, but when you're watching a channel, which I won't mention, you know, if there's back-to-back 3 girls dancing around a BMW with some dry ice, you know, you can't even see the artist. No, it's all fogged out. Yeah.
The artists, yeah. But, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and it takes someone sometimes from outside of the industry to say, "No, why don't you do this? Something different.
Yeah,
Do something different." You know, and but look, so for yourself, is there any filming projects in the pipeline for you?
Yes, actually, funny enough, ironically, the clock seems to be winding back, because over the next sort of 12 months or so, I've actually got two really big things in development that I'm attached to, that are both be on streaming platforms. I won't mention which, just in case they don't work out. So they are, obviously, COVID has got in the way of all of that. So one of them was actually supposed to be being shot now from sort of November onwards through winter, because it's set in that period of time in Birmingham, funny enough. Birmingham, it always pulls me back for some reason, whether it's working at the Asian Network for 7 years or hanging out with my mates from the music industry. But yeah, so there's a TV series which is it's got 2 seasons written already, 12 parts for each. We're just waiting for clearance at the moment on that to be able to kind of shoot that. And then there's a small kind of UK British film, which I probably shouldn't tell you the title of just yet. That again, funny enough, will be shot around the Midlands, and it's set in the 80s. So I'm playing a fun, not the lead in that, but a fun comedy character in that as well. So lots going on there, but I've got a lot going on with Rivco as well at the moment, which is really nice. A lot of what we were supposed to do this year has moved to next year. We've got an idea to do, because people are still a little bit fearful of being in the theatre, the ones that are allowed to open. We're working on an idea of something outdoors where people can be more safe and comfortable. So hopefully spring, summer next year, that'll roll out. But yeah, loads going on, man.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people that are fearful going into a theatre, they're the ones who are flying off on Ryanair to. They're in a fucking metal tube.
Yeah. With no air, the same air.
The same air, and they can't sit in a theatre maybe 2 seats away from the next person.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my bugbear, because I think the theatre should come back if they can do that, you know, and football as well. Bring people back. They can do it safely, right? And but so good luck. You know what? As an Asian community, we should be proud of you, mate. Ameet, because
Thank you.
Honestly, because you know, you've been part of our lives. You know, really, with some of the films you've been in, you've been in Eastenders. You know, we kind of grew up with you in a sense, you know, and I'm super excited to see these projects, and because I think you're a talented guy, and it's not the end, by the way. I'm just getting melodramatic.
No. It's nice. Carry on. You're
an actor, right? You love this, right? And no, but honestly, I think we should be proud of you, man. You know, you've done so much, and you've done it in a way that really resonates with people like, you know, in my age group. You know, these sort of young Asian, you know, we're not the first generation that come over, you know what I mean, right? And
I know, I do. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
So fingers crossed, 2021 is going to be a busy year for you. You know, definitely going to be a busy year. And I know the reason we sort of set this up as well is talk about a serious subject as well, about Ricky Reel. And I remember the name Ricky Reel when I was younger, right? And I remember the story. You know, they'd gone out with friends, coming back from a club, and he'd fallen into the water. That was what we was told, right? And you know, he's gone for a piss or something. He's fallen into the water, and but you know, as young Asian men, I thought I had a feeling, right? You know, it's got to be more to it than that. You know, they've either had a fight or something's happened, right? And I remember it getting brushed away. It was about 3 years, wasn't it, after Stephen Lawrence, yeah, 3 years. And this is before the McPherson report. So the term institutionally racist wasn't around, so we didn't know that term, you know. And just reading up on it before I came to do this interview, some of the stuff was really shocking for me, you know. But the part where they're spying on the mum, you know, and the family, I mean, it's sickening for someone, you know. We got kids now, right? And just the fact of losing a child, and the authorities, the ones that are meant to help you, are actually hindering you. And you know, and I mean, how people go through that in their life and survive and still strive for some kind of justice is, you know, I have utmost respect for them, you know, for the
Mm.
family, because just me reading about it was really pissing me off.
Yeah.
I was getting angry because, and I was thinking, yeah, what can they do? You know, so how did you get involved in this? And for anyone listening, you know, if you, I've kind of explained the story about Ricky, but if you could explain.
Yeah, okay. So in brief, I mean, you sort of hit it there. I mean, there's a couple of things that I've discovered since then, obviously. So it turns out that Ricky never made it to the club. They were confronted by these boys before him and his friends went into the club.
Oh.
After that kind of little incident that happened, they carried on going towards the club, and then Ricky decided that he didn't want to go anymore. So he turned around and said, the club. He was, I believe, at the bus stop waiting for a night bus to go home in Kingston. And it seems these same boys came back and attacked him. And it's you know, there's a lot of kind of just mind-boggling evidence that hasn't been addressed. You know, there was a video CCTV camera that Ricky's mum had discovered that was put in a locker and then it was lost. You know, so many things. You know, Ricky had a phobia of open water, so he wouldn't have chosen to urinate by an open river. You know, there was bruises of blunt objects on his back, and then when his mum was given the clothes later on, the same tear was in exactly the same place that the bruises were on his back, and then she was accused of putting that tear in the clothes, not knowing where he had been hit on his back. So how did it exactly match? There's loads of little things that still keep coming back to me, and I'm like, my God, it was so obvious. You know, like why was this injustice handed out to this innocent family, to this innocent boy? You know, so my involvement actually goes back 23 years ago. So I was, as a young actor, I was employed to be in the official reconstruction for the BBC back in the day.
Oh wow!
That Tommy Nagra directed, and I knew nothing about the case until I did that. So I was one of his friends, one of Ricky's friends in the official reconstruction. Through doing the reconstruction and then discovering more about it, I kind of got a little bit more knowledgeable and educated about it. And then I kind of set out to kind of learn more. I started talking to some people, and then Tommy Nagra, who directed it, then put me in touch with the Ricky Real awareness kind of foundation that his mum had set up. And then through that, I got involved with the likes of Sanjay Sanj and Fundamental and Asian Dub Foundation and all those guys. And we put together a kind of night of music in Ricky's name to raise awareness for it. We did a press conference and an event at Kingston Uni as well. So all along the way, I was kind of part and parcel of kind of keeping the fire stoked in terms of keeping the awareness alive. And then obviously, unfortunately, because the inquest came back as an open verdict and then things kind of got buried, as it were, it sort of fizzled out. But what I didn't know is that Rich had still maintained his contact with Ricky's mum, because he was involved in some of the early stuff, and Taz, and the list went on the people that were willing to kind of give their time to raise awareness for the case. And then he got in touch with me about, I wouldn't even say 2 months ago, maybe 3 at the most. 2 months. And he said, I've been talking to Sukhdev auntie, and one of her wishes is that she always wanted to have a track out in Ricky's memory because he loved music. He was a big fan of music. But also she would really like to reignite the awareness of the injustice. And I went, bro, I'm in, man. What do you need? You know, I didn't know where I could be involved. I'd sung a couple of songs on Rishi's early albums years ago and then sort of diversified from that completely, moved away from it. And he said, I don't know, let's just talk. So Kirani got involved with Rishi and I. We set up a group. Then we got Raj from Media Moguls involved. And we started toing and throwing ideas. And Rishi sent a beat. And then in amongst all the research material, Sukhdev auntie had written reams of poetry in helping her to kind of exercise her emotions, I guess, of the loss of her son and her feelings. And I was reading through some of this poetry and I just started writing stuff down. I don't know what happened. I've actually got it here somewhere. I can even show you. This is the original piece of paper I wrote on, still here with the original lyrics. You can see all the bits rubbed out and scratched out and moved around. And just reading the poetry, I started moving some of her words around and adding my bits. And all of a sudden I had these 2 verses and I sent them to Rishi and he went, bro, wow, okay, let's do this. And I said, I don't want to do this as a rap. I sort of want to do it as a spoken word piece because I could do a hard hitting rap and lose some of the lyrical content the first time you hear it. Like even with any rap song, the first time you hear it, you don't necessarily get everything they're saying. So I said, what I want to do is sort of almost speak over the beat, even though it's in rhyme. And he went, okay. So I just opened up Audition on my desktop here and got the mic out and started recording it. I sent it to him and he went, bro, he goes, we're onto something here. And then Kieran, he did the choruses. He started doing his magic. And then literally within 2 weeks or so, we had a song. And then he said, right, what do we do now? Let's make a video. And I went, well, okay, how do we do this? You're in Mumbai, I'm here. He goes, just record your pieces from home, man. And I did that. I did it on my staircase. I did it in here. I did it, out there. My missus was holding the camera for me and sent my pieces through. And here we are, man, less than, I don't know, 2 or 3 months later with a finished song in Ricky's memory. But also in my second verse deals with his mum's plight and the fight for justice for 23 years. And what it's been like for her in the second verse. And we just, and I think because of the machine that we sort of jumped on, if that's the right word, we then got much more kind of evoked by it all and went, right, what else can we do? How can we make this more invigorated? What can we do? So we started talking to friends. We did a massive thing with Punjab 2000 the other day in which that got, almost like 20 something thousand viewers on it. It's been shared like 200 times. And then we started looking into things. And a friend of mine who's quite politically connected said, we need to get a petition signed by a local member of parliament. If you get 10,000 signatures, you get PMQs, Prime Minister's questions.
Yeah.
If you get 100,000 questions, you get it debated in parliament. So then we started getting onto that. So we started talking to Auntie and saying, shall we do this petition? She was like, yeah, let me get her local constituent member of parliament, McDowell, involved. And so I think we are now set the ball rolling to get this petition set up so that, people like you and me and your viewers and Punjab 2000's viewers and all the other websites and subscribers to all these things can get involved and sign this petition and hopefully help to reignite that kind of case, man, And also, sorry, I'm talking loads because I'm very passionate about it, but
that's okay.
What's happened is 23 years later, we've got a whole generation of people that didn't know what happened.
Yeah.
Right. But with that, we've got amazing technology. We've got social media. We've got Instagram. If you put my Instagram, Rishi's and Kieran's together, it's probably like 100,000 people, man. Do you know what I mean? If everyone that followed all three of us signed a petition, we'd be in Parliament being debated. And it just feels like with technology now, they can revisit some of that CCTV and enhance it better, check DNA better, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really, really poignant time for this to be happening. And I'm super proud of the team, but also of Sukhdev Auntie. Like, what a woman, 23 years of battling for justice. And she's still as on fire today as she was 23 years ago, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is that the aim now for the family as well, to reopen the case? Is that
if I'm really honest, sir, I don't know. We're taking it day to day, man. At the moment, we're really hoping that friends in the industry and people like yourself can really help us just get the word out there again. And then day by day, we're talking to politicians, we're talking to more influential people, we're talking to other members of parliament, and we're getting advice. We don't want to just suddenly set up this thing and go, right, okay, now that you've got it, what do you want? We need to know that, yes, if we reopen this case, is it going to be worthwhile? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a worthwhile cause as well. And, I'll put the links to the petition, to the video on the show notes as well. It's just some of the points I read, because I just read it just before we've come on, actually. And, it's a policeman saying, maybe he's run away because he's going to get an arranged marriage. And, little stuff like that. And it made me angry. I shouldn't have read it before I come speaking to you. But
no, it's good. It's good. You need to read it, man, because those are the injustices that were served.
Because Ameet, that Ricky could have been me and you. We've gone out with our mates, right? We've had a few drinks, and it could have been us just walking down.
So I'm 2 years older than Ricky, man. If Ricky was still alive today, I'd be 2 years older than him. I used to go to Kingston to Options all the time to party.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It could have been you and me. And it could be other people's kids still, man.
Yeah.
And that's another reason for this sort of reignition of the awareness, because as much as we want justice for Ricky and for his family, we also don't want any other family to have to go through this. And to empower families that might be going through this, that have been treated the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, Amit, it's been fantastic having you on.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I love talking about films, and to have someone like you coming on, I'm a fan of yours and
Thank you,
of your
sir.
work. And good luck for 2021.
Thank you. We all need it, man. Let's face
Yeah,
it. 2020 has been a weird one, right?
yeah. Are we blowing it out of the water 2020?
Yeah.
We're just aiming for 2021
We're
now.
almost there. We're almost at the other side. We're almost at the other side.
So yeah, good luck with all the projects on that. And if you got anything to share, let me know. Come on, and we'll have a chat about the new projects or anything coming on. And
For sure.
it'd be great to catch up. But for now, Ameet, thanks for coming on the SMT.
So, can I just say thank you so much, man? It's a really, really lovely kind of conversation. You took me to places that I haven't been for a while as well in my memory, and also just the ability to have a platform like you talk about is truly, truly. We're grateful. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, mate. And we'll speak real soon, mate.